Howdy, folks. It's Mitch Kuffa with homework. Today I want to talk to you about the weather's changing. It's getting colder, days are getting shorter. But I want to talk to you today about late fall home maintenance checklist. This is a late fall home maintenance checklist. These are items that you probably should look at before it gets impossible to do, okay? And they're in no special order again, so get your pencil and paper out, and I'm going to rattle these things off to you. But, when I comprise these lists, keep in mind sometimes, and I sit there and I think about what I want to talk to you about. This list ended up longer than I thought it was going to turn out to be. So I'm going to kind of scramble through this as much as possible, but I want you to understand what's going on, okay? So this is a late fall home maintenance checklist, okay? First of all, rake up, as a last effort, rake up all the leaves that you can, okay? Or get them, have somebody rake them up for you. But the bottom line is that if there's too much leaves left on the ground, it's not good for the terrain, because there's a lack of oxygen, there's a lack of sunlight that's able to get down to the grass and to the growing things that you want to grow. Okay, if there's a little bit of leaves, it's not a bad thing. It's not a big issue because we basically will act as fertilizer, in the spring and stuff like that. Okay, so make sure you got the rakes leaved up. The leaves raked up. If there's any garden seed you want to plant, you want to do that now, okay? And keep in mind that there's a lot of different kind of garden seeds and grass seeds, okay? You got sunny ones, you got shade ones, you got wet terrain, dry terrain, et cetera, et cetera. But now is the best time to plant that grass seed because then in the spring, you're going to have a luscious lawn, all right? So if you're going to do that, now is the time to do it. Clean and store your furniture, anything that's left outside. You want to get it out of there because you can leave it outside if you want, but it's just going to age it faster, and it's going to make you buy new ones faster, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things out there, too, that if they're too heavy to move or something, you want to cover them with a tarp, And just for the record, a lot of people don't do this, and most people don't, but I always cover up my air conditioner, because the air conditioner takes a real beating out there all winter. There's all types of the wind and the rain and the debris that flies around, et cetera, et cetera. But you want to get rid of the furniture that's outside that's going to get damaged by the winter weather, all right? Turn off your hose bibs. The hose bibs, those, unless you have the frost-free type, you don't have to worry about it. But if they're not the frost-free type, you have to go inside the house usually and shut them off because otherwise there's potential for them to freeze. And that's a very regular occurrence that happens, especially with houses that are older, than 40 or 50 years old. They have the older hose bibs for sure, okay? And they have a tendency to freeze, and then they're leaking in the basement, and you don't know about them, and they cause damage. Touch up exterior paint. We talk about that all the time, I know. But, basically, if you have chips in the paint and there's exposed wood behind them and everything, that area is going to end up deteriorating faster than if it's just touched up. So you probably want to run around the house outside and see if there's any areas where there's big chips or anything like that and touch them up and scrape off anything that's loose, okay? Check and maintain outdoor lighting. The days are getting shorter, right? So, outside lighting in the wintertime is really important. At your porches, at your backyard areas, even in your garages, detached or attached. The doors are open. A lot of times you have to leave the doors open, and you want to make sure that those are secure areas. Today they have wireless high-intensity motion detectors. They're not real expensive, and you can put them in too. They work real great. A lot of them make a lot of noise if somebody's trying to get into your house that they shouldn't be getting into your house and stuff like that, okay? Make sure you include your garage, though. That's important. But we want lighting in the wintertime. I like it. I got lighting around my whole house, all sides of it, for the winter. Clean the gutters. I know you hear that over and over and over again, and I hate it. I hate it, especially if you have a two-story house. You need high ladders, or you want to hire somebody to do that. But dirty gutters are great for what they do. But if they're dirty, they're horrible because they cause all kind of problems. First of all, they're going to cause ice damming. If the gutters are full, the water can't get in there. It's going to cause ice damming. That can damage your shingles in your roof. They cause mold and they cause deterioration. As the water flows over the gutters that are now all plugged up, it saturates the ground around the perimeter of your house, and that ground saturated around the perimeter of your house a lot of times works your way into the basements and into the crawl spaces. Okay, so you have to have clean gutters. It's a pain in the I don't want to say better, but another thing is gutter screens. I've been researching gutter screens lately, and they were really expensive, and they're coming down quite a bit in price. There's a lot of different ones available, but they're still quite expensive. And gutter screens are great, but they are expensive. That's the issue. The big thing is you want clean gutters in the wintertime, especially. Okay, clean your dryer vent cap and the pipe. Okay, just remember the dryer vent, if that thing is plugged up, first of all, it's plugged up with lint. If it's plugged up, you're going to have carbon monoxide backdrafting into your house. That's not good. You don't want the carbon monoxide backdrafting into your house. And a lot of times that flap on the vent itself gets stuck and doesn't open or close properly. So it's good to clean those things out for sure. And the other thing too that a lot of people don't realize, most of the ones we see as inspectors, people are using that corrugated type aluminum pipe or that corrugated vinyl pipe, okay? What the problem with those is that they have the tendency to collect lint on the inside. You don't want things just to flow through there. You want smooth dryer vent pipe. You want everything connected properly, and you want it to vent outside, not into the house, okay? Repair leaks. Oh, yeah, repair cracks in your asphalt and concrete driveways and walkways. And people think, well, that's not a big deal. It is a big deal because you know why? Because if you don't repair them, then water's going to get into those cracks. Water's going to get underneath the concrete or the asphalt. It's going to saturate that ground more than it would normally. And when ground freezes with water in it, it expands, and it's going to crack the driveway, and it's going to make it move. And it's going to cause pedestrian traffic hazards. It's real important to seal those things before winter comes, okay? A lot of people get their driveways sealed in the spring because they think it looks pretty. But actually, in actuality, if you have an asphalt driveway, you should get it sealed in the fall, right now, to seal all the cracks in it and make it live longer, okay?
As a kid, I always dreamed of finding a buried treasure. Did you know that gold may be buried in Buchanan, Michigan? Yeah, a millionaire claimed he buried it in the 1900s and left directions on how to find it. Good thing you don't have to look too far to find affordable health insurance. Make an appointment with the Grant Smith Health Insurance Agency because this is our busy season. Oh, about the gold. The directions were recorded on a fragile wax cylinder, which was dropped and shattered.
If you have a fireplace chimney, you probably might be using your fireplace in the wintertime. You want to make sure that it's clean. When's the last time you had your chimney cleaned if you use your fireplace? Creosote accumulates inside that pipe, and creosote is flammable, Also, the problem is that a lot of times in the summertime, you have little things getting into your fireplace chimney. Like leaves again, branches, nests, bird nests, little animals, raccoons, squirrels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's important, again, that, to have a chimney that's clean when you light up a fire in your fireplace, okay? Because otherwise you can get smoke backdrafting into the house. You should definitely prep your heat system. That's beyond saying. But the thing is that you should reset your thermostat if necessary. Make sure that it's clean. Adjust the dampers. And you want a licensed heating contractor to do this. Now, this should be done. I have mine done actually every year. If your furnace is more than 5 to 7 years old, you should have it done more regularly. An average gas forester furnace, and I've seen the gas forester furnaces last for 8 years. I've seen them last for 35, 40 years, okay? But the thing is that you want a professional to look at them, okay? The worst thing in the world is have your furnace failure in the middle of wintertime, okay? Make sure it's got a clean filter, and make sure that all your floor registers are functional so they open and close so you can control the heat flow, okay? Batteries and smoke detectors and carbon monoxides. A lot of times the batteries go out and people don't even know they don't work. If you have wireless, the battery type of smoke detectors, a lot of times they don't work and you don't even know they're not working, okay? So you definitely want to check those and make sure they're working in the wintertime especially. And carbon monoxide, if you have a carbon monoxide detector, it's real important that it's functional now because now would be the time that you need it the most. When the windows are closed and when the doors are open and closed less so that you don't have fresh air in the house. Windows and doors, make sure that they're, of course, I've gone over that with you 100 times. Make sure they're sealed, they're clean, the tracks are lubricated, they close tight, and everything. There's a lot of heat loss through those areas if they're not done that way, okay? Crawl spaces. You got to make sure you insulate the pipes in there, okay? And you got to make sure all the vents to the crawl spaces are closed. You don't want cold air blowing in there now. Those vents in the crawl spaces are supposed to be operable, open and closed. Supposed to be open in the summer, closed in the winter. And if you got pipes down there, if it's cold down there, you should have a heat source down there preferably. But if you don't, or it gets colder down there than normal, you want to insulate any water pipes from freezing. Those pipes freeze all the time. There preferably should be a sheet of plastic over the dirt floor. That helps a lot. Insulate the upper ceiling areas. And I've talked with you about this numerous times in the past also. Remember, 70% of heat loss goes up through the roof. 70% of heat loss goes up through the roof. 23%, approximately 23%, goes from doors and windows. Okay? That means that walls, there's some walls typically are 5 to 9%, maybe 10%. Wall insulation now is almost impossible to put in unless you get that foam put in. That's quite expensive. And windows and doors are very expensive if you're going from a single glazed glass to a double glazed glass. Attic insulation is cheap. You can usually get it blown in, and they can do it within a matter of a couple hours, and they're done with it. It's easy to do. They just blow it in, and it's there. But you'll be surprised if you don't have much insulation in the attic. And for years and years, we required 6 inches. Now it's up to 12, 18 inches, depending what it is, okay? But, that's important, obviously. Anything that's in the garage that can freeze, you want to get out of there, okay? That's a big item with, like, prepping your garage, such as different types of paint, if you got latex paints out there, anything like that. If you want to keep it, if it freezes up, it may not be good again, but, you may end up having to throw it away and get some new stuff, which is expensive. But, prep your garage. People's garages are amazingly a mess in general, all right? If your roof is more than 10 years old, and we've talked about this before also, if it's more than 10 years old, or it's in the shade, you want to check it out yourself, or have somebody who knows what they're doing look at it, okay? Roofs the average roof has a life expectancy of maybe 20 years. They have shingles now that last more than, they have shingles now that last 50 years, okay? But the standard shingle that we're used to for so often is a 20-year life expectancy. And if you live in a shady environment, like a wooded environment, it has a less life expectancy because shade is not good for a roof. It allows moisture to stay in the thing, and it causes problems, as opposed to living on a beach area where there's a lot of sunlight, okay? So check your roof out. You can do it from the ground if necessary, from the windows in your house, or have somebody take a look at it for you that knows what you're talking about. Any trees, you want to make sure the trees around your house are trimmed. You don't want any loose branches hanging over the house. You don't want any of them potentially touching your house or near touching your house, because when it gets windy in the wintertime and those branches start to blow around, they're going to start scraping the house, and they're going to start scraping the roof, and they're going to definitely shorten the life expectancy of all of that stuff, okay? So if there's anything overgrown around your house, you want to get rid of it now in the late fall, okay? Trim the trees nearby, and you want to walk around your house and see if there's any cracks or openings, okay? Is there cracks in the brick? Are there cracks in the foundation area? Are there cracks around your windows? If there are, you want to either caulk them, and now they have that nice new stuff that comes in a can, it's like foam, it's like shaving cream, and it's very competitively priced, and it's real easy to use, and you shoot it into those holes, and it expands, and then it looks kind of ugly for a little while, and then you can trim it right off, and you can paint over it if necessary, okay? But you don't want any cracks or holes around the perimeter of your house where cold air can enter, okay? Now those are it, all right? Basically for the late fall punch list. And I'm sorry to burden you with all this stuff, but it's a fact of life. I mean, when we inspect houses, we find this kind of stuff all the time, these shortcomings all the time, and they don't work in your best interest. They work against you, okay? That's it for now. This is Mitch Kuffa, and this whole video was presented by Blue Water Healthy Living, sponsored by the Grant Smith Health Insurance Agency, and produced by GBS Media. Thank you. See you next time.